Hello and welcome to a Taylor's Tales podcast. This is Chris's Corner. I'm your host, Chris Taylor, and this week I'm back with a brand new episode. This week I am in New York City, the Big Apple, the best city in the world, or so some say. I am just off the trail from where I visited Washington, D.C., and before in the previous podcast I was in Dallas, Texas. This week I just want to give a little roundup of the last week I've had in the USA, which is kind of crazy to say after 2 months of traveling across Mexico and the United States of America. It is kind of incredible to be in this last 2 or 3 days, well, 2.5 days of traveling. And there's some ups and downs definitely in little things, but the majority of the trip has been overall positive and has allowed me to come out with a really sense of adventure and allowed me to get some new memories, and that's really important, especially when you go back into that normality of life where you're getting on that daily grind, day in, day out, and you can just smile to yourself and know that you've got those memories, those sharp things that poignant in the back of your head saying, I did that. I did it when I was young. I did it at the right time, and I did it, and it made me a better person and a happier person, and that is, you should be chasing meaning as well, and this is definitely something that this holiday, this vacation wasn't just about going lollygagging around North America and Central America. It was about, for me, to take a break from the standard of life that was the pandemic. It's allowed me to come out more refreshed, more alive, more driven. I'm not going to say motivated, because as David Goggins says, motivation is crap and it doesn't come back. It is genuinely, I believe in that wholeheartedly, because through the drive and the consistency that I've built through both the podcast, my working out, all of the things that I do regularly, my writing, my reading, although those two have suffered lately because of the traveling, but I'll get into that. I think that if you can keep something going regularly, that makes you driven, especially when you are passionate about it and when you really enjoy it. It doesn't become a chore, it becomes something you really enjoy, and I think that's what people find difficult, especially with the gym and working out, is that they make it a task, they make it a chore to do. That's not how you do it. You build it around something that you can truly enjoy, truly love, and by doing so, you allow yourself to finally have something extra to add to your hobbies, something that is going to make you, feel alive and true meaning in the life. Anyway, starting off a little bit too early in the morning to be giving messages of hope and joy. Anyway, so you may be asking, Washington, D.C., what was that like? Washington, D.C. is one of the most underrated cities I've ever heard of. Washington, to me, has always been just known as this political capital that's got a few monuments, and it's nice to see. It's the capital of the United States. That's it. That's all it's got for itself. I was so awestruck with its natural beauty, the parks there, the beautiful monuments that are white, dazzling, the marble floors, the surrounding city itself is a town almost, and it's so easy to get around as well. That's another thing, is that you can get the metro, you can walk. I walked everywhere. It was so easy to get from, let's say, the Washington Monument to the White House, to get to the, what was the other thing I was seeing? President Lincoln, that's it. President Lincoln Memorial, there's that as well. But being able to get from one to another, I think it's a total of a 3-hour walk, all round. So that's half, if you're going to be doing that throughout the day, if you spread it out with breakfast, lunch and dinner, that's basically your day gone. And then once you've done that, you're knackered, you're shattered, you're ready to go to bed afterwards. And that's the best thing about these days, where you do have the ability to walk from one place to another. Is you're getting your steps in, you're getting your exercise in, and you are also finding yourself seeing all of the attractions that you want to see at the same time. For me, I've got some really epic photos of Washington, D.C., and I really enjoyed being there. I was only there for 2 days, but I think that was perfect. It wasn't too much, it wasn't too little. I say 2 days. I was there for 2 nights, 3 days really, and on the first day I had amazing weather as well. It was 18 degrees. This is on the east coast of America, where it's February at the moment, so it's incredible the weather diversity within the United States as well. How I've gone from the West Coast, where it's like minimum of 22 degrees every day, to going to Denver, where it was snowing and kind of cold, like 5 degrees ish, not massively, and then it went all the way back up to like 16 degrees, and then Texas, it was like 18 degrees all the time, like 20 degrees. It's, and then going from there to Washington DC, and then it was a surprise 18 degrees, and the coldest it got was like 12. So it was amazing. And now I'm in New York City, and I got here and it was I think when I arrived it was 1 degree. So this, just one extreme to another. It's incredible. And maybe because I'm British, I find that more interesting, the weather, than other people. But I love the fact that you can, let's say, just jet from one side to the other of the country and find yourself getting yourself a little bit of a tan rather than being in the freezing cold. But I find that New York City, even with the freezing cold and the wet and the icy snow, it's still such a beautiful city. Like yesterday, it was just sunny out, and it was freezing cold, but it was just beautiful. I went to the top of the Empire State Building and just looked at the surrounding city. $44 well spent, I can tell you that right now. It's one of those things that I never regret doing. I've done it twice now. I've done, back in 2016, 6 years later in New York City, and it's still just as good. It's still just as fun. One of the things that I find, amazing about New York is the underground, like the equivalent of what you've got in London as well. It's just, again, the ability to, you're paying I think it's $2.75 for any entry within the metro. You can go from one side of Manhattan to the other for that. And it's just amazing. Go from here to Coney Island for $2.75. Like, that's madness. Absolute madness. And I love it. I love stuff like that. And it really gives me this, like, hope that other cities may follow suit. Like, let's hope that Los Angeles and other places in America which don't have as good public transport really focus in on how New York has been successful in that area. Yes, there's been a few stabbings recently. Before I got here, I did see on the news 6 people been stabbed on the London Underground because of gang warfare, and I was like, oh no, this is not looking good. But I think that we live in very strange times, and although there's dangerous stuff like that going on, you can really, if you are a sensible person who has the ability to not go out after 1 a.m. or stay in your hostel after dark, like around, I would say 10 o'clock-ish. If you can stay in and go to bed at that time and not go out after dark, after 10 really I should say, and you can restrict yourself, you're never going to get really into any trouble. And you will find that if you stand up straight with your shoulders back and step forward with your chest out, as my dad always said, it's fascinating to be able to do that, to be able to see that nobody ever really bothers you, nobody ever really gets in your way. The worst I've had is panhandling, where they ask for money on the train. Like, that's life in New York City, and that's life in London for that matter. I mean, I don't think I've ever had anyone ask me for money on the London Underground, but I have found that on the streets, they do that. So it is what it is, and I hope that homelessness in the United States gets cleaned up slowly. I think I will talk about this in my overall view, but what I can say in this podcast is that you know what? Scratch that. I'm going to talk about it now. I think Henry Rollins had this great quote where he said, "There's nothing like the United States. It's a hairy place. There's no other place like it, in the sense that the most dangerous place on earth for him was his home, the United States of America." And this is me me misquoting him in some way, but he said that we're so free. You don't ever tell an American what to do.
I mean, you live in America, I live in America. We're the roughest room I've ever been in. I mean, we're a coast-to-coast Phillies Flyer game. We are blood and teeth on the ice. I mean, we are, because of freedom, we're very free. And people just, walk up and, smack you. And I've never been to a country as free as America. I've been to countries that were way more hectic, like don't get caught outside at night, like, downtown Nairobi or, parts of Russia are kind of scary just because they're living hard. But as far as a place where anything can happen, America is like easily the hairiest place I've ever been day to day.
And it always made me laugh because he said that the United States has freedom, and the UK, France, Germany, he said Europe, they all have freedom, but not like America. And I think that's kind of why you have an issue. I kind of think that there's an issue in the United States because of that. You give people level of freedom. They have it as an expectation. Their highs are so up here that when you get down to here and you see the homelessness, I think that's why. You've got such high freedom, such high, like in the UK, don't get me wrong, like there's obviously problems and there's stuff in, problems in Europe as well, but Europe in a whole, they've got some pretty good laws. And if you look at your food here in the United States, if you look at the content of how obese people are, this is what happens when you give people that level of freedom. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just saying, like, you talk about it in a very positive, but it comes with negatives as well. And so you can't just say things and not expect there to be repercussions. And so in this case, I love, by the way, Henry Rollins is one of my favorite people on earth. That's why I'm quoting him, because it's really important to be able to, and I will have hopefully have chucked in a clip of this quote earlier. It's really intriguing going from one side of the America to the other, because you see that freedom, but you also see the diversity and the types of freedom. And when I say that, I mean how people live and how they use that freedom in their lifetime. It's fascinating. It really is. Like, you've got less rules down in the south. You've got more rules on the west coast and on the east coast. It's an intriguing place because of that freedom. And I think that when you allow there to be this riotous act in some way or another, that's what you allow. You allow yourself to be in this chaotic state where everything's allowed but nothing's allowed, and everything's going but nothing's going. And you allow one extreme to another, billions and billionaires, and then you've got absolute poverty. So it's intriguing, and I think that's one of the downsides to the US. Many of the upsides is like an absolute beautiful place. Like, nobody talks about that, is that like the landscape of the United States is friggin' incredible. I think that there's some really intriguing like cities being built. I think that New York City as a whole is you could spend, I mean, I'm spending 6 days here, and I'll be gone on Tuesday, and I'm recording this on Sunday morning, and I just feel like I scratch the surface every time I come here. And one thing I have realised though, I said to people when I last came here that I would live here. I wouldn't, and here's why. It's amazing to be here, but there's just so much going on all the time that it just feels like you would never have any, quiet time. There's always noise going out on the streets. There's always something being built. There's always something being repaired. It just feels to me, for someone who's been in the countryside, who enjoys that peace, who enjoys that quiet, it's difficult to, when you want to calm down, when you want to meditate, when you want to, it's not necessarily possible to be able to get to that state because of how New York City is. It's also a plus side, because the plus side is there's always something going on. So you can say it in a positive and a negative. I love the fact that during the day there is always something going on in New York City. There's always something to do. There's always something to see. There's something crazy going on. There's a band playing. There's a night show. There's a Broadway show. There's people doing stuff on the streets. There's monuments to see. There's attractions to see. There's movie theaters. I went to AMC for the first time the other day, and I watched Uncharted, which I really enjoyed. Very bog standard script. I don't know whether it does justice to the Uncharted series or not. Personally, I would love to have seen Nathan Drake played by, and I wanna, it's Nathan, basically the guy from Serenity, the main leading actor from Serenity, and I would love to have seen him play Nathan Drake. But this is a prequel, and so Tom Holland has done well for himself. Anyway, it was really cool going into an AMC after seeing how the stock market exploded around that cinema. I was really impressed, by the way. The theatre of AMC in downtown New York, Manhattan, was just epic. Really nice luxury leather sofas. Not too overpriced suites. I mean, cinemas everywhere are overpriced anyway, but the point being is that it was similar to the UK and in Europe. And it was nice just to take a day where it was a rainy day on Friday, so I took a day to just hit the gym and go to the cinema and relax. And doing so allowed me to recuperate. And what I found is that I've been doing so many steps over the past week, maybe 2 weeks, maybe even over the past 2 months, is that my left leg, beneath the knee and around the calf area, has started to, if I start going over 10,000 steps, my leg starts to hurt a little bit. And it doesn't hurt when I run, it only hurts when I'm walking. For those who are intrigued in sort of injury prevention and stuff like that, I try and make sure that I'm not eating any inflammatory foods and stuff like that, and I try and restrict myself to healthy greens and meats and stuff like that mainly. But when you're traveling, it becomes that much more difficult to be able to obtain that structure. And so I imagine what's happened is that some inflammation has built up in my leg because of the food I'm eating and also because of the amount of exercise I'm doing, and it's not really allowing it to recuperate because I'm just going day in, day out, doing stuff every day, and I can't stop because I've only got so much time before I have to head home. And this is the thing for me as well, is that I'm probably going to need a week to rest when I get back home before I even start thinking of work, because I'm just going to be knackered from all of the exercise, the moving from one city to another consistently. It's this, and I'm not moaning. I loved every second of it, and I wouldn't have it any other way, because the want and need to see things bang, 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 bang is all about me. That's all my life is this love for getting after it day in, day out, and also having this opportunity to see so many things in such a short period of time. 2 months can feel like a lifetime, but it also can feel like seconds. And I feel like I've filled it so full of stuff that it feels like a lifetime, which is epic. And I don't think many people feel that. They feel like when they go on holiday, it lasts 2 seconds and then they're done. For me, these 2 months have felt like a long time, and it's been really enjoyable to feel like the days are not, so short and so quick that it comes around to the 1st of March and I'm like, where did the time go? But in note, I think that if you can find things that you really want to see, you find a place that you really enjoy. And so that's probably why I had trouble in Austin, Texas, and Denver, was there was kind of less things for me to see, and therefore it didn't allow me to truly enjoy the place, truly envelop the place. I got told by a friend, a traveller, he said that maybe you just didn't meet the right people, Chris. And that can also be another thing, is that the US kind of, it doesn't really have an atmosphere in the hostels. This is probably one of the best hostels I've stayed at so far. And there's nowhere to record. There's no rooftop. There's no, places like that. I've been very lucky up till now to have some really nice backgrounds. Sadly today, I was thinking of filming in Central Park, and then I looked, it was minus 4 degrees outside. So yeah, that's not happening. I'm not going to sit on a bench for 30 minutes with my laptop camera out, waiting for people to come up to me and question me why I'm recording. But yeah, it is what it is, and you make do with what you have without, moaning about these things. You've got to be aware that when you purchase a bed at a hostel, that you're not getting things, for instance, snoring, for instance, being interrupted, stuff like that. But you also get to meet people, and that's also something that's truly enjoyable. But now that I'm getting into my later 20s, one thing I am gonna move towards is probably gonna move into a little bit more luxury. What I will do is I'll visit hostels rather than staying in them, purely because I just want to get some good sleep from now on. That's the one thing that I've really struggled with, is that if you don't get a good night's sleep after you've done a lot the day before, is that it can really affect the up and coming few days. And I'm dragging on a little bit about recovery here, but it is really important, especially when you're on holiday. If you're on holiday for a week or 2 weeks, then you're fine. But if you're vacationing like me for this length of time, for 2 months, then it can get a little bit repetitive after a while. I must say I'm sorry about the noise pollution around me. Like I said, it's, like in the hostels, New York City is a go place, and there's not a lot I can do about it. The best I can probably do is cut out some of the audio post-edit. So post-editing Chris right now is probably going through going, oh fuck, find the clip. But it is what it is. It's part of the joy of making these, is the editing part, is going through. I don't like the sound of my own voice, so I can't listen to myself for too long before I go bleh. Don't know how you guys do it, but it is really enjoyable, the process of finding the clips, putting them in there, finding things to make the podcast a little bit more interesting, because just listening to me, or just listening to me talk to another person, can be a little bit boring. It might, it spices it up a little bit, and I find that the ones that are most fun to make, without a doubt, are me interviewing people who aren't actually there. So the David Goggins one, the Jordan Peterson one, the Joe Rogan podcast, the Jocko Willink one, those are my favourites because they're so much fun to put together, the clips, and they make me laugh when I'm watching them back, and that's very difficult to do. I think there's certain people who can really make me crack up, but they're far and in between, so that is what it is. And sorry guys, this is the problem when you wake up out of bed, shower, and then just come down and immediately do a podcast, is that you haven't had anything to drink, zero coffee, and you're operating purely on fumes. I say fumes, operating off a semi good night's sleep. Like I said, snoring in hostel rooms can really drag the night out. Anyway, New York City, like I said, what have I got planned? What have I done? So I've seen the Empire State Building, as I said. I've been there before, but I loved it going back there again, because it gave me like a really fresh sense of what I'd actually seen before, and I didn't really rekindle the memory until I'd got there. And those, listening to music while you're up there, that once you, like I said before, I love the ability to associate music with a place. Really gets me, hits me right here. That really gets me where I live. And I hit the Wall Street Ball. Always interesting to see, because that's where everyone's money gets stolen. No, I'm just kidding. But actually where a lot of money gets made, and actually where a lot of money gets made for a lot of people as well. But always interesting to see that architecture, because the bull's testicles have been removed multiple times by random left-leaning people, which is kind of funny to see. I've seen Times Square. Times Square for me is a little bit overrated. I feel like I'm having an epileptic fit every time I go there, because there's just so much light going in from every angle, and I'm just like, whoa, like, are we going through like Let's Do the Time Warp sort of thing? It's a little bit much for me. I remember when I was younger, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, this is epic. There's so much going. There's so many lights. This is really incredible. But the majority of it is advertisement, and you're just like, man, like, why can't we just have some movies playing in the background, like a classic Godfather Part 1 in the background? That'd be fun to see. But, that's just me being pedantic there. I've seen Central Park. Now, Central Park is an absolute gift, and I'm about to go do an 8-mile run out there in the cold. I'm going to change out these jeans, put some shorts on. I've got like this under layer here to keep me warm. And I love... This is something for me really important. If a city has a park like the size in Washington, like the size in New York City, it automatically takes it from a 7 to an 8 or a 9, in my opinion. And New York City was already, in my opinion, like a 9 or a 10. But like Central Park just makes it that much better. The green spaces that you have make your city so much better than it already is. And it gives people the opportunity who don't have it. For instance, in the pandemic, when people were locked in their houses, I imagine the access to Central Park was a lifesaver. The fresh air, the ability to take your children out and, let them run riot, to even for your kids, teenagers, like full-grown adults, getting exercise and seeing some nature, having the waterfront there. Like, man, you can't put a price on that. Like, there's no There's no way, if in my lifetime I ever see anyone trying to build or like put anything on parks like that, like in the UK as well, and like near me where I live, where they film Pride and Prejudice, Stirhead. If they ever try and build on that, I will make sure financially they get the wrath of me, basically. Financially, physically, every matter. There's no excuse to be able to build on these beautiful green spaces that allow people to enjoy themselves. Just as simple as that. And I think New York City is so much better for it, for having that massive green space. Otherwise, it would just be a concrete city. And not that I'm saying that it doesn't have its perks because of that, but it has these green little spaces like the High Line, like Central Park, and like having Coney Island, the beach to go to. That just allows a new view of what New York City is. I'm going to Coney Island tomorrow. I can't wait. I love going there because of Mr. Robot, because of the arcades, just seeing it visually. Its aesthetic is very different to anything you'll see in New York City. I'm going to see the Brooklyn Bridge today at some point. I love that architecture, the red metal, the grandness of it. It's not going to be as good as San Francisco's Golden Gate, but it is still something to see, and it's incredible that these sort of architectures exist in the first place. And it kind of makes me sad that we haven't anything built like that in the, I should be saying in the 21st century. It doesn't feel like there's anything massive, anything really structurally incredible being built currently. So those to people who are architecture people, I really hope that you correct me and tell me that there's something out there that has been built in the last 10 years that really is as incredible as the Empire State Building, as incredible as the Golden Gate Bridge or the Brooklyn Bridge or one of these places. Because for me, they also they give me a little bit of hope, They resemble like human decency and human ability to work together and build something greater than ourselves. And I think that's what's so cool about New York City. It's put in so many movies, so many films, because it has this grandness to it. This anybody can live here, anybody can get by, as long as you're willing to put in the grease, the work and the effort and the elbow sweat to be able to be here. And it's a dirty, filthy city, but I love it. And I think that if they cleaned it up a little bit, like they do in Europe, if they just got together, like a team of people from the local council who got together in a meeting and said, look, we're going to pay people a really reasonable wage to be able to go clean up the city, like a really, really good wage, like something that's going to make people go, oh, wow, I really want to do that. Even if it's a dirty job, that would change everything. And I think with the amount of money that's available in this city and in the US in general, that's totally possible. And I think that all it takes is one idea and a few people to get behind it to be able to allow the city just to have a nice little, clean up, and then it will look amazing. That dirt, that filth can be put away, and maybe at the same time they can, for me it's all just talk. I would love to have the access to somebody so that I could take action. Like, I would love that. That would be so cool to put a plan together to say, look, right, we've got these resources. Let's spread it out. Let's try and pay people the most amount we can possibly pay them. And by doing so, we make this job attractive and we make it a little bit cooler than it really is. And then you clean up the city, and then you have a result to put on your resume. You then have, look, I was one of the people who did this. Very few people will be able to say that they did it. I don't know, all of this is hypothetical, but I love thinking these like fantasy minds where you have control over something as cool as cleaning up a city, or getting the homeless together, and all of these things. I would love to have some sort of impact on that, but I'm just here talking to a microphone. At the end of the day, it's still interesting to voice these ideas. So, Brooklyn Bridge, Coney Island. I'm thinking I need to hit a couple of places I've never been before, because I feel that otherwise I'm just hitting these massive monuments and not really going for things that are a little bit out of the way. For instance, yesterday I went to Joe's Pizza, and wow, like that that was really nice. That was really good to go out of my way. It took me 20 minutes to get there by train to get into Times Square and find Joe's Pizza. It was definitely worth the wait. 2 massive slices of pizza, worth every penny. I think it was $8 for 2 slices, like $4 each. Like, it was totally worth it. I was just like, this is, when you have the oven, pizza ovens, like, it's got that crisp dough, like that crisp bottom, and then really you can taste that it's real sauce, real tomato sauce with a proper cheese and proper toppings, like proper pepperoni. You can really taste the actual meat, and you're like, oh, this is real. This isn't fake stuff. So finding little places like that are going to be my goal for the next couple of days, to find things that are out of the way, that aren't necessarily on the main tourist map. And so I think some of the photos I've taken so far have been really incredible. I'm hoping to take many more over the next couple of days. But sadly, I will be leaving the United States on Tuesday evening, coming back to the UK on Wednesday. So I will be recording an episode at the end of next week. I think I'm going to round the travels up. I'm going to talk about the benefits of traveling. I'm going to really get together. I'm going to write a list out, write a script out, and come up with some serious ideas, because a lot of these podcasts have been on the fly, because I haven't had really time to write out a script or write out think ideas. I've just been doing things where I can, really, and that's the way of traveling. So that's one of the downsides of traveling, but I will talk about many of the other positives and many of the things that will maybe pique your interest a little bit around whether you want to take a couple of months out, refresh your mind, come back to your friends and family as the person they love and know, rather than the person that they've got to know over the pandemic. So, this has been the Taylor's Tales podcast. This has been Chris's Corner. I'm your host, Chris Taylor, and as always, I hope to see you this time next week. Bye now.